Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, Out of Voice Radio, and today it is time to talk about some incredibly exciting and incredibly important new rules changes that are happening in the Pokemon trading card game, and these will be in effect for the Pokemon World Championships in just over a month's time. Now, you guys aren't going deaf. I am being a little bit quieter than usual. My 8-week-old daughter is asleep upstairs. I am trying not to wake her, so I'm in a different room. I'm being a little bit quieter. Fingers crossed. And before we get going here, huge shout out to Tina Michi, who has become my rules guru, in the same way that the lovely David Hockman is my translation guru. And yeah, she sent me these rules and talked me through these rules, and lovely, lovely, lovely lady, thank you very much indeed. Now, probably the biggest rule here, well, there's two really big rule changes. First of all, sudden death is now going to feature 6 prize cards rather than 1. The new rule reads, if both players take their last prize card or knock out their opponent's last Pokemon at the same time, and no other win conditions have been met, players must determine the winner of that game by engaging in a tiebreaker game, what is commonly referred to as sudden death. The players should set up as though they were playing a normal game, including setting up 6 prize cards and flipping a coin to decide who goes first. The winner of the tiebreaker game is the player who takes a prize card first. So the first prize determining the winner is still the deal. But now, when you are setting up for a sudden death or tiebreaker game, you put out 6 prize cards rather than 1. It always was that you just put out 1 prize card, now you put out 6, and this leads to some very important changes. First of all, if you're putting out 6 cards rather than 1, it is much less likely that the card you want is going to be prized. So if you are playing with Buzzwole in a sudden death game, you're probably going to want your Diancie Prism Star in order to do an extra bunch of damage. Now, Diancie Prism Star is a Prism Star card, meaning you can only have 1 copy in your deck. If you are putting out 1 prize card, there is a 1 in 60 chance that Diancie Prism Star is your prize card. Although I do know there was a British player back in 2012 who had 2 Shaymin in his deck and ended up losing in the last round of the last chance qualifier because he started with 1 Shaymin and prized the other in single death. 1 in 60 chance. He obviously wasn't a particularly nice person, so I'm not too sad. It was just statistically very unlikely. But if you're putting out 6 prize cards, you've now got a 1 in 10 chance of having that Diancie Prism Star prized. Also, N changes a lot. You see, what you used to be able to do in a sudden death game is if you had a better setup than your opponent, just play an N. Now, both players have got 1 prize card remaining because it's sudden death. So both players shuffle their hand into their deck and get 1 prize card, or 1 card for their hand because they've got 1 prize card, and the player who had the better setup would pretty much guarantee the win unless the other player happened to get a Professor Sycamore with their only card. That's gone away, and I think this is one of the main reasons for this. The issue is, of course, if you play an N, then you really win just because you dropped an N, not because you had the better deck and had the better setup and all of that. You just got into a slightly better position and end your opponent down to 1. Now, the other huge thing about this, watch when you're setting out your prizes. Worlds is a tier 2 event. If you put out 1 prize rather than 6, that means you have got 5 cards in your deck that you shouldn't have in your deck. It means if you search with, say, an Ultra Ball, you are more likely to have the cards you're looking for there than if you put out 6 prizes. Doing a search in this manner in a tier 2 event like the World Championships is an instant double prize card penalty. Remember, in our previous rules video we talked about how we've gone to double prize card penalties. If you do 3 or more, it's a game loss. Also remember that in a tiebreaker scenario, if you give your opponent a double prize card penalty, you lose the game instantly. Now, to be fair, there's probably going to be a table judge there. If you've gone to sudden death, then pretty much every other game is going to have finished. You're going to have a table judge who's going to remind you, but this is very, very important. If you end up in a tiebreaker at Worlds, you have got to put out 6 prizes rather than 1, or indeed any event from now until the rules change again. The other big change that we see is that now in any best of 3 game, you have got to finish in order to actually have the game count. The old rule was that if one player had taken 4 or more prize cards, now this wasn't in Swiss, this was in a single elimination game, then that would actually count as the win. You wouldn't need to win game 2, you would just need to be ahead and have taken 4 prize cards. That is no longer the rule. If we look at the new rule, it just says unresolved best of 3 match. It does not say anything about single elimination. If the last turn ends during game 2, the winner of game 1 wins the match. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. What that means is that there is no I've taken 4 prizes, I win the game scenario. If you've taken 4 prizes and you're ahead and game 2 ends, but your opponent won game 1, you lose. This is absolutely huge when you get to a single elimination game, because it used to be if you lost game 1, your goal would be take 4 prizes and be ahead when time is called. Now, you've either got to take all 6 prizes, run your opponent out of Pokemon, or deck them out. Which means that if you lose game 1 in single elimination now, you have got significantly less time to win the match, because you've got to do significantly more to win game 2. And you can see why Pokemon is doing this. They want completed games. They don't want people going, well, I'm ahead and I've taken more than half of my prizes, therefore I win game 2, let's go to a tiebreaker. And incidentally, this means that tiebreakers will be much rarer, because it used to be that if somebody was ahead and had taken 4 prizes, they'd win game 2. Therefore, you'd have a winner of game 1, a winner of game 2, and then go to a tiebreaker. Now a tiebreaker only happens if you have a simultaneous win, i.e. both Pokemon get knocked out at the same time, and there's no other win condition, something that not every player is aware of. If, for instance, you've taken all of your prizes and you've benched your opponent, whereas they've taken all their prizes but you've got bench Pokemon remaining, you've got 2 win conditions and they've got 1, ergo you win. So it used to be that if both players take their last prize simultaneously and there's no other win condition, or game 2 somebody had taken more than half their prizes, then we'd end up in a sudden death. Now sudden death only happens either in the simultaneous KO situation, or if game 2 has finished but game 3 has not yet started. If game 3 has started, then we just carry on and essentially its next prize wins. These are 2 very, very big changes. If you go to sudden death, you've got to remember to put out 6 prizes rather than 1. But if you're in a single elimination game, this is going to change your decision making. You might have to concede 5 minutes earlier than you would have done because you've got less time. You might have to play game 2 faster than you would have done because you've got less time. There are probably going to be people in the elimination tournament of the World Championships in the final couple of rounds who end up losing in a situation where they could have had a tiebreaker under the old rules. This is absolutely huge. Now, there were a couple of other changes, but honestly, they are quite minor. There was a clarification in terms of sleeves. We expect players to use their best judgment when determining which sleeves to use with their deck. Pop strongly recommends the use of sleeves with an opaque back. Using clear sleeves or declining to use sleeves at all may expose imperfections on the back of the card that could contribute to a marked card situation. i.e., if one of your cards is more scuffed up than the rest, you can pick it out easily when shuffling. Again, this has pretty much always been the way. What you want to do is use opaque cards, i.e. solid back, or just official Pokemon sleeves, and you should be off the hook. There was also a clarification in terms of a note sheet that you might take into a game must be completely free of text at the start of each match, which is pretty much the way it always was, to be honest. And there was a clarification that intentional draws can only happen in the trading card game. Video game competitors cannot agree to an ID. The reason is draws are technically possible in VG, but they are extremely rare. They're pretty common in TCG. We don't want to encourage draws if we don't have to. Although really we should refer to them as ties, because draw might be drawing a card. And finally, there has been a rule change. In addition to the above, judges are responsible for ensuring that players are not disadvantaged due to time loss as a result of a ruling or penalty. Judges may issue time extensions of a length corresponding to the time taken to resolve the issue. Now, you might be thinking, hang on a second, Wassy, haven't we always had time extensions? Yes. Yes, we have, but it used to be extremely rare for time extensions if it took less than 2 or 3 minutes. I think I've lost 3 tournament games because my opponent called a judge, it took less than 2 minutes, and then I was 1 turn away from winning. I played in a lot of tournaments. I think that's happened 3 times. Nowadays, to put it simply, the judges have a lot more discretion in terms of issuing time extensions. These could all make major differences to games being played, but they're extremely important given that the World Championships is in about a month's time, just over, and these rules will be in effect for that. Make sure you know them, and if you know anyone that's going to the World Championships, or watching the World Championships, or has an interest in the rules of the Pokemon trading card game, make sure you send them this way to watch this video so they're fully informed. But tell me what you think about these rules changes. Tell me how relevant you think they're going to be in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.